A long way from home. This is Brazil.
James McFadden scores for Scotland.
So we're back, another episode of Joga Bonito. It's a special one today, looking ahead to what is going to be a huge evening at Hampden Park when Scotland host Denmark in the final game of World Cup qualifying. Fraser, firstly, how are you doing? How are you feeling ahead of this game?
Buzzing, absolutely buzzing. There's a sense in myself, and I think in the nation, that there's just something in the air, because we shouldn't be here, we shouldn't be in this position, but we are. And I'm incredibly excited. We've been in this position before against Denmark, but the difference is we can actually outright qualify. So yeah, excited. Yeah,
brilliant place to be in. You've alluded to it there, a position we maybe shouldn't be in. We're trying to think if we knew any Belarusian sort of phrases we could use. But we don't, but we just want to say thank you to the Belarus for their result. Unexpected on Saturday night as they picked up a 2-2 draw against Denmark while Scotland were unfortunately losing to Greece. We're going to react to that game a little bit, look ahead to the big one on Tuesday night against Denmark, and we're going to actually touch on the championship at the end of the episode as well. But what we've done is we've picked out the 3 talking points that we think are the big ones ahead of this game. So Fraser, should we just jump straight into it?
Yeah, why not?
So obviously, the first one we're going to talk about then is that Scotland did lose the game the other night, but they did it in rather spectacular fashion, I think it's fair to say. The loss was unfortunate, of course, given the fact Scotland did create some great chances at the end of the match. And after the game, Steve Clarke spoke about the fact that he maybe feels that the Scotland team finished that game with a bit of momentum that they can take into this upcoming match.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a weird one, because we're now, on paper before Saturday, if we'd been sat here after a Scotland loss, regardless of the nature of it, we'd have been, we thought we were going to be completely depressed. Kind of weirdly, it's the most, I'm actually more optimistic now after yesterday than I was after the 2 wins at Hampden last international break. It's very odd. But the fact, the shoots of promise that we showed from, let's say, half-time, maybe even 5 minutes before half-time, show that we can play good football. Okay, we did concede 2 goals in a short space of time after 55 minutes on Saturday, but apart from that, it was a strong Scotland performance. So optimism is the word, I think. And you could, now on yesterday I was following the Scotland rugby game, and Scotland went 3 tries up, 21 points to 0 up, and then ended up losing the game. Had that happened to Steve Clarke and his men, where we'd gone 2 goals up and lost 3-2, it might have had a more negative impact. And actually, I think, weirdly, going 3 goals down and coming back to 3-2, when really we should have made it 3 each as well. So, it's an incredibly, like every Scotland match in this campaign, incredibly confusing. I can't quite get my head around it. However, there's some serious momentum that we've sort of gathered from 60 minutes onwards that I think can take us into tomorrow night or tonight.
Into the game. Whenever this does go out, I think people know what you're talking about there. It's a slightly bizarre feeling to have after a Scotland loss that the mood was quite positive. I certainly didn't expect that going into the evening, that if we did lose that game, there'd be any sort of seeds of positivity. But there was plenty of that. Fraser, what would you say sort of the key differences then were between, I'd also say the last 10, 15 minutes of the first half, Scotland looked really bright, and obviously that last half hour. What was the key differences between that and how they obviously started the game, other than, conceding a shit ton of goals?
It's so obvious, I think, that Scotland, when they play on the front foot and when they're aggressive, they're a very, very good team. When John McGinn is taking on 3 players, putting the team on his back and rolling, getting out of positions that he shouldn't be getting out of, Scotland are better. When McTominay's on the front foot and he's marauding forward with the ball at his feet, or playing 1-2s with Christie, Adams, whoever it is, Scotland are a better team. When Ben Gannon-Dokes turning the defender, Scotland are a better team. It's just when sort of McGinn, Christie, Ferguson are sort of nipping at the heels of the Greek opposition, Denmark, whoever it is, Scotland look so much better. However, for the first half an hour, 40 minutes, it's and my prime example that I always go back to is that first game in Munich against Germany. when Scotland were set up to, in a very defined structure, not really, they're sort of jogging side to side, they're not letting, trying not to open any gaps between the midfielders and defence, and it's very passive, sort of a very passive structure, and it's just too negative for me. And I think you can see it's a little bit gung-ho, but when Scotland play that way, they've got the players to sort of cut through teams, and they had to let the handbrake off. They had no choice. They had 3 goals to make up, or 1 goal initially. It turned to 3 goals. They had no choice, and when Scotland play that way, they're a very, very good team.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I've heard that term, taking the handbrake off, quite a few times in the last few days. You're not the only person I've heard say that, and it's spot on for what it is. And I think you can feel the players, they're well aware of the magnitude of what's going on. You heard John McGinn speak, Andy Robson speak, saying it's not good enough to concede 3 goals, but they know how big an opportunity this is for them, probably for the last time, to try and get to a World Cup. And obviously Craig Gordon at the age of 40, I mean, who knows, he might be around at the age of 46 getting us to the World Cup after, you never know. But yeah, you could feel the weight of it, and I think John McGinn probably had one of his best games in a Scotland shirt for a long time. Yeah. But that does lead us quite on to our second talking point then about going into this game is player selection. So looking at the team throughout, then might not be too many changes needed. We did sort of briefly mention this before. However, centre-back John Souttar and Grant Hanley were maybe exposed, it's fair to say, to the level that they've maybe be a bit concerned about if you're really sort of looking at the negatives of their game, the flaw of their game, if you want, so maybe question marks there. And up front, a man that we've staunchly defended, Che Adams at times. I thought he had a very good game in certain aspects, but I think it's fair to say, for example, if Denmark did end up winning that game, you'd probably look back at this and say it was the Che Adams game, for all the wrong reasons. Fraser, what do you think Steve Clarke should do with his team lineup going into this one?
This is an interesting one. I've picked your brain long and hard about this. I actually weirdly don't think there needs to be too many personnel changes. I think if you'd come to me at half time on Saturday night, I would have said different 11, completely make maximum changes. However, we all saw what they can do. That the formation's right, the personnel is pretty much right. It's just the approach, and that's where I see the issue. I think I wouldn't mind seeing, as you alluded to, I would like to see maybe McKenna come in for Hanley. I think it possibly wasn't Hanley's best match.
Well, it's funny, we were talking about this before as well. Steve Clarke seems to sort of use Scott McKenna as attacking centre-back. Exactly. When he wants to play a game on the front foot, he's like, here's my attacking option, Scott McKenna. And he comes on and plays the ball a little bit better. But that partnership, John Souttar, Grant Hanley, we certainly had question marks over them. Yeah,
and I think you've spoken about it before, where you love Grant Hanley in certain arenas. You like him in a backs against the wall performance.
I think it suits him at Hibs. He's in the middle of the back three, where he is slightly protected either side of him. Exactly. And what happens in front.
McKenna's maybe more of a front foot defender. He's possibly a wee bit more technical than Hanley. He can do what Hanley does, don't get me wrong, but he's maybe a little bit more of a footballer. And I think the nature of the situation against Denmark is that we need to go out and win. Hanley, if it was a situation where we were in Denmark's position and we were looking to draw, that would scare me actually a little bit. But I could see Hanley maybe, lining up and just heading and everything away and soaking everything up. McKenna's maybe a little bit more of a front foot centre back. So I would like to maybe see McKenna come in up front again. Yes, absolutely. Che Adams should have been scoring at least 1 or 2 on Saturday night. But he had a good performance, and he does. I'll say it till the cows come home. I don't actually think Scotland's striker is there to score goals. Sounds crazy, and obviously, if they can score goals, that would be amazing. We're not blessed with a Troy Parrott or an Erling.
I mean, I suppose, yeah. Recent events, yeah.
If we had Troy Parrott or an Erling Haaland, then would
that's
maybe
not a sentence I thought you'd be saying this time last week, but yeah.
But we don't have that natural finisher. People would argue Lawrence Shankland, and yes, he's in good form, but I just think with the quality that we've got in midfield, the goal scoring midfielders, you've got McTominay, McGinn, Christie, Ben Gannon Dolt now's getting on the score sheet. defenders like to step up and contribute as well. I don't think it's that necessary that the striker is always scoring goals. And I think Che Adams, okay, he had a bit of a nightmare and he missed a couple of chances, but apart from that, he created the chance for McTominay with a sumptuous Joga Bonito of a pass, flicked round the back. He harries. He does. I'd love to see his running stats in a game, and he is technically very good. And against, we've spoken about it before, Che Adams against Denmark at Hampden. He's done it before. It's written in the stars, Callum.
Some script. Yeah, you're almost saying there, yeah. Apart from the 2 glaring sitters he missed, no, actually had quite a good game, yeah.
And that is...
Other than that, yeah.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people that don't like XG. I do quite like XG. I think his XG was something like 0.98 or 0.89.
That's a big XG for you non-XG fans out there.
It is a big XG. He should have... It's still not 1 goal though, so technically he shouldn't have scored a goal. But that is big. And a good striker should be...
Yeah.
You know, a very good striker would have a goal in that instance. He should have scored, and he was unlucky not to on 1 or 2 occasions. But I think, look at the all-round performance, he did well. We've discussed this as well, though. I don't think Dykes would be a bad option at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't be, shocked and utterly disappointed if he did start Lyndon Dykes. More for the pros of Lyndon Dykes. I can't really see the point of taking Adams off, especially if you want to change a game. Yeah. Adams isn't someone that you maybe want to bring on off the bench in the same way that maybe Dykes and certainly Shankland could in the final 20 minutes. I think that was a bit of a disappointment the other day. I thought Lyndon Dykes maybe should have came on 15, 20 minutes earlier, and Shankland could have had an extra 10 minutes as well. Possibly that's one thing you'd say.
Yeah, and that's where with Steve Clarke it's just a little bit confusing because, he hit the gung-ho button, he went for it. But I think it was in the 80th minute. Yeah. And then he sticks Shankland and Dykes on at the same time. And then I can understand.
They only got about 5 minutes of Hurst on the pitch as well, And then.
But I think if you're going to change it, that's upsetting the apple cart just too much, I think. And Shankland and Dykes are not 2 players that Scotland fans would probably think would work well together. I think throw one of them on, maybe Shankland on then Dykes or Dykes. But to throw them both on, Dykes is kind of playing almost on the left wing. Out on the left a little bit, Shankland through the middle. It's just a little bit. I can see why he's just sort of at that point. It's just get balls into the box and onto the head of the 2 of them. But it just, when you've got a good balance to the team before that, it just seems a little bit crazy to just really. He's throwing caution to the wind, but without, I think, too much logic. And that's, I know I'm just a little guy on Joga Bonito podcast, and Steve Clarke knows what he's doing better than I do. But it just, I struggled to see the logic there. So I can see why, and if it turns out that he goes with Dykes instead of Adams, I'd be quite happy with that because I think Dykes will do a fantastic job, and he'll bring in McTominay, McGinn, Christie, these players into the game, which is what I think Scotland need to do. But I think I would still go with Che Adams. I think he's got a lot to offer, and he's due a goal basically. You can't miss it like that every game. So.
Yeah, the back heel for Scott McTominay though. If that went in, I would have been writing home about that one. So changes in the team then, we'd probably say Che Adams up front. Personal opinion there. Could be Dykes, maybe McKenna in at centre back. Billy Gilmore questions about his fitness. For me, if he is fit, is he ruled out? Is that officially ruled out now?
That's official, yeah. Sorry, I meant to say that.
Should have ruled that
prior to the camera rolling. But yeah, I think Steve Clarke's just gone on his presser to say he's out.
So midfield, probably just keep it the same as well. But I think maybe that back four does need a little bit more protection. I think almost maybe Lewis Ferguson's best position might be the same one that Scott McTominay needs to occupy. Scott McTominay was he floated out the game at times as well. It was John McGinn, I thought, was the one that really, of that sort of group of players that sort of grabbed the game by the horns, as well as Ryan Christie, who we don't need to start talking about. We're such big Ryan Christie fans here, and it's great to see him. I was saying to you before as well, I'm glad that Steve Clarke's finally put him into that number 8 position because let's say we get around to the next qualifying campaign, there's a new manager in, they're probably going to play Ryan Christie as a central midfielder because that's where he's doing so well at club level. I'm glad Steve Clarke's done it, get the credit for it as well because he's so influential in there in his drive and the way he just plays the game as well. I think he does need someone next to him that's going to keep it a bit tighter. Lewis Ferguson, we're big fans of him. You've got Lewis Ferguson on your shirt at Fergie time. For anyone that can't see, and a lot of pictures of him on the back of the shirt as well. Nice one we've had on display. So we're all big Lewis Ferguson fans. I think maybe just it might not be his job, but he might just need to unfortunately do it, because I think he can have a bit more of an impact in a Scotland shirt. We've not quite seen him get to his levels. I'm a big fan, as I say, and Scott McTominay as well. Maybe he is just quite a mercurial player these days, and that's what he does so well. Sort of maybe suits the Italian game quite well, doesn't it? Where he can float in and out. Just want to see that impact from him, and I trust the boys though. I'm buzzing for this one. Get behind the lads. So, do you want to move on to final?
Well, just before we do move on, I'm just going to ask your thoughts on Kieran Tierney's involvement.
That's a good question.
We discussed this, and obviously we expect it'll be a back four, but we discussed it off camera before, and it's quite an interesting point. I think I wouldn't mind seeing a back five from start. What are your thoughts on a back five maybe later in the game?
Yeah, I do like the idea of the back five. I think Scotland at their rip-roaring best is probably with the back five and Tierney and Robertson really teaming up down that left-hand side. We've seen them do that against the best. We've seen them do it against Spain. We've seen them do it against the best countries in the world and look so effective. But just for the way the team's set up at the minute, how important John McGinn and Ben Gannon-Doak were to Scotland's sort of attacking play. The back five might not suit, and obviously big question marks about Kieran Tierney's fitness. But I do think he could really have a role to play in this game. There could be a time in this match, if we did see Robertson sort of dragging on a bit in that game, if he has a disappointing performance, you've got a brilliant option there in Kieran Tierney to come on. I'm not saying I trust Andy Robertson to have a good game. Don't worry. There might even be a way where you get them both on the left-hand side. But I think Kieran Tierney can have a role to play in this game. It probably suits him that he didn't play any minutes the other day. Comes in fresh and off the bench, for the last half hour. If the game's set up in the right way, Kieran Tierney could have a real effect. Him and Ben Gannon-Doak down either wing getting crosses into the box sounds like an exciting prospect.
Well, you talked about Lewis Ferguson there and how he's not the most defensive-minded of defensive midfielders. And I think John McGinn grabbed the game by the horns the other night. I think it was when he sort of drifted in a wee bit more centrally.
Yeah, you might be right, yeah.
And when he's caught out on the wings, which he has to do to sort of compensate for the sort of four at the back, 4-2-3-1 or 4-1-4-1, however they kind of set up. I just think John McGinn wreaks havoc when he's more central. Lewis Ferguson, if he's not the most defensive-minded CDM, then if you stick Kieran Tierney in a back three, there's the extra added protection. Andy Robertson can bomb up and down. The two of them can hurt Denmark on the left-hand side. The issue there is with Ben Gannon-Doak, and I do get that, but I quite like the idea of being more secure with the five, and while still having the attacking outlet on the left-hand side, Aaron Hickey down the right-hand side, Ryan Christie can come in centrally but maybe play a little bit more attacking in that setup. But then a fresh Ben Gannon-Doak to come off the bench with 55 minutes, 60 minutes on the clock. Tweak it if it's not quite working, if we've not quite laid a glove on Denmark like we would have intended to, then you can hit them with a different kind of style. Go forward at the back, either Robertson or Tierney comes off, Ben Gannon-Doak goes on, and then it's just a different, without upsetting the balance of the team too much. I quite like that idea. I know it's maybe quite a radical change from what we've seen lately, but just some of the best nights at hand have come with Kieran Tierney in a back three. If you look at Spain, for example, so I'm interested in that. I don't think Clark will go down that route, but I think it's something that when you just look at the flaws in the Scotland team and where we're lacking a little bit, I think it would be something that I think it could work. But we'll see. And I would be quite happy with the back four, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the back four, you're almost having to tear it down a little bit to rebuild it up, and maybe it's just such a big game. It's such a radical change. I will be honest, I was a few points down that first half when Craig Gordon was pulling off save after save like he was prime Buffon, that I was sort of shouting at the TV. I was like, Steve, get Kieran Tierney on, switch to back five, and then suddenly we started creating all the chances. So
well, exactly.
Shows I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, but I think Kieran Tierney could definitely have a role to play at some point. From the start, a bit of a radical change, and you mentioning Ben Gannon-Doak being on the bench makes me a bit sad.
No, I know. And it really, considering what a goal it was that he scored. But
buzzing for him to get his first goal as well for Scotland. So yeah, good timing for that. So we'll just wait and see what the team's going to be then.
Well, exactly. I'll text Steve. I'll see
what he
can
thinks.
Get an exclusive. But then we should probably look at our opposition, Callum.
Yes, our third talking point. Yeah.
So our third talking point is Denmark. What do they pose us?
Yes, that's so. Obviously, Denmark in the week as well. There's been reports of a virus going on, a stomachache going through the squad. So Rasmus Højlund looks like he's going to miss out on the game, as well as Christensen, their right back, former Leeds right back, and Jakob Andersen as well, who didn't play the other night as well. Important player for them, of course, but they've still got a lot of quality despite that. Do you think the absence of certainly Rasmus Højlund, sort of the big name in there as well, leaves them a bit light up front? Certainly in terms of having more than one option to change it up. Do you think that's going to affect them?
Yeah, 100%. I think I didn't see the game, obviously. I was otherwise occupied following the Scotland game, but I think they started with Jonas Wind up top, and he's obviously, like, Rasmus Højlund is doing phenomenally well for Napoli this season. He's scoring goals, he's in good form, so to go from Højlund back to Jonas Wind, who forgive me for my ignorance, but I assume is not playing to the same level that Rasmus Højlund is. So that's probably what potentially sort of had an impact on the score the other night. And I think they had over 30 shots on goal, Denmark, and obviously were consigned to just scoring 2 goals. So I think that's a huge miss for Denmark. It's a big plus for us. It's always I always feel a bit sort of dirty when it's a positive for Scotland. I hope Højlund's okay, but
I mean, a centre back, if they don't have Jakob Andersen, they've still got the lad that plays for Barcelona. You know,
exactly.
Christensen and.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if they would, because I think they were playing a back 4. I wonder if they would normally be playing with a back 5 with Jakob Andersen in as well, because that's a strong back 3. They would have Andreas Christensen, Jannik Vestergaard and Andersen as well. So I'm not entirely sure, but some big players there. I think if you look through it, the Denmark squad, we can match them.
Yeah, I think so. And
absolutely.
Another talking point to have then as well is that I can certainly give the Scottish perspective on it. That as thrilling a game that was, obviously between Denmark and Belarus. I don't know how you were following it, Fraser, but as I say, I was in the pub a few more pints down at this point as well, and we saw the score come up 1-1, bottom corner of the score in Sky Sports pubs. Like, yeah, a table a few down from us just erupt in cheers. And I'm like, oh my God, have Belarus done it again? Check the score, my friend. 2-1. Comes up on the score a minute later. The place erupts, man. Unreal. Gets to full time. The longest 7 minutes of my life. Which ended up being, I was like, it was the 99th minute of the game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're still playing. I was watching it on Betfair, Opta stats. So I'm like, okay. Oh my goodness, like, because I couldn't find, like, the game wasn't on any channels. So I'm like, I'm watching this game for 5 minutes. Past Dorgu forwards, Vestergaard, touch of the ball, whatever, and I'm like, what's happening? Dangerous attack. I'm like, no, edge of the box, I'm like, that way. And then every time it was goal kick Belarus, I was like jumping up. Thrilling game of football from the Opta stats that I was watching it from, which, to be honest, not a great way to watch a game of football.
Not ideal, but
yeah, I was sort of following one of my friends. She knows nothing about football. I'll tell the story again. I was telling you before that one of our friends, she saw that the players on a yellow card had a little yellow card next to the name. I also explained, that means I'll be suspended for Tuesday. And she was like, all right, that makes sense. So before the game, she was like, oh, look, the players on a suspension have yellow armbands on. I'm like, what are you talking about? She was like, yeah, they've got yellow armbands. And I was like, no, there's only one player in each team with yellow armband. She was like, no, I saw 2 players with yellow armbands on. And I was like, yeah, that was the captain's for both teams, the captain's armband. So this is the level of football we're talking, knowledge here. Yeah. So she's watching it with me on Opta Stats. My pal Patrick's watching it as well. He's a big Patrick Dorgu fan, Man United fan. Every time Dorgu gets the ball, he's worried, but on this life, as was I, because I think he got the assist for one of the goals. So we're just watching it. No clue what's going on. Full time goes through. Everyone just erupts in the pub, man. It was brilliant. But if I was Danish, this was the point of where I was getting to this, is I'd be feeling a bit frustrated. Most certainly after watching Scotland labour to a 2-1 win against Belarus. And by the way, Belarus, for all the knocking they've got, they've had some really bad losses, are a good team. Clearly, they're a good team. They took the goals. They might have only had a couple shots really in the game from accounts from I've heard as well. But like the 2 goals, they took them really well. And full credit to them. But Danish fans, I don't know, they're quite as volatile as Scotland fans can be at times, but if that was Scotland, I'd be coming into this game maybe tail between the legs a little bit.
Well, we spoke about momentum, and I think momentum kind of applies the other way as well. Denmark are coming into this bruised. They had Belarus at home.
It's on a plate for you, that, isn't it?
Scotland Greece had done them a favour. Scotland had also done them a favour. All they had to do was beat Belarus at home. They put 6 past them in Belarus not long before, or I would assume Hungary, sorry. But they put 6 past them away from home. On paper, you're thinking Denmark are going to stroll this, and they didn't. So I think Steve Clarke quite smugly, quite subtly got his dig in back to the Tartan Army, saying that our win at Hampden's looking a wee bit better now than it did at the time. Obviously, there was a few boos after the game, but he possibly does have a point. We all rather pessimistically and negatively looked at that game, thinking that Scotland were rubbish and that we should never have allowed Belarus to create the chances that they did. But actually,
I don't know if we should have, but
possibly not. But with that added context, now that they've gone to Copenhagen and taken a point against Denmark when they were a goal to the good as well, shows you that it was a better win than we possibly gave the team credit for. But Denmark they'll be hurting. Whether or not will work in our favour or not, I'm not sure.
Hopefully, you don't know. I mean, wait and see.
But it's interesting, the head-to-head stats, Callum.
Okay.
Denmark and Scotland have played each other 16 times. Okay. Can you tell me how many times Scotland have won?
I've looked at your notes about 5 times.
I've done that you don't know. But can you guess? Without looking and remembering.
I had to guess it'd be 8.
You're correct. And can you guess how many times Denmark have won?
About 7.
Well, exactly. So we have a positive win record against the Danes. We've drawn once. So the likelihood that we're going to draw is pretty negligible.
Yeah.
Which is good because we can't draw. And the likelihood that we're going to win is more likely than we're going to lose based on our previous 16 games. So, on that basis, we're going to the World Cup.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we always perform our XG, don't we? So
exactly.
No question there. Well, it's good to know. I think certainly in recent history, though, I think the Scotland team go in and play Denmark, and very similar groups. I think this Scotland team, this Denmark team have sort of gone through a generation. Sort of, obviously there's a few younger players in both sets of squads, but they've had quite core, strong groups. And this Scotland team have met this Denmark team a few times now, and I think it's really good for them going into this game. Whilst Greece, I think, is a bit of a terrible matchup for Scotland, a bit Israel-esque sort of the modern era. Yeah. Greece, I think they will have Scotland's number quite a lot when they play each other, unfortunately, with the play style. But this Denmark team, Scotland go in knowing that, albeit they weren't 100% of the Denmark team last time we played them at Hampden, Scotland have got a history. They've beat them at Hampden before, and they've also gone to Denmark this season on their own patch and taken a point. So gives them that little boost maybe going into this game.
Exactly, and this is a curiosity with Scotland. It's and Steve Clarke and the way that his team's set up. I actually think I'm thinking back to Saturday night and thinking if Scott McTominay had scored that goal, if Che Adams had converted his chances, we'd be sitting top of the group by 2 points right now, and we would just need to grind out a 0-0 draw.
I'm going to cut you off here.
No, but my point is, I actually think this is a better position for us to be in.
Okay.
I think Scotland going into that game against Denmark, where all we have to do is
get 0-0,
is get something, is the wrong mindset for Steve Clarke. I think Steve Clarke, when Scotland are slightly up against the wall, when, for example, we're playing Spain, we're not expected to beat Spain, we can go out, we take the game to them, we win 2-0. When we're in Oslo and we're a goal down and we look like we've played a terrible game, we grind out a 2-1 victory. Yeah. These are the occasions where Scotland, they have to step forward, and they've got the ability. There's no doubt that Scotland can win this game on Tuesday. And I think Steve Clarke's talked about belief. I think he needs to believe it. The players need to believe it. And the fans also. I think they do genuinely. I certainly believe it. And the fact that we need to go out and win, it kind of just removes all uncertainty. It's like a World Cup. It genuinely is. It's like a World Cup final. You win it, you're through. You don't, you're out. And so, well, we're not out. But
it feels that, yeah.
But it does. I actually think to get the best out of the Scotland team, we kind of need to be on the back foot from the start to allow us to just go out, take the shackles off, and get Robertson whipping balls onto anybody's head, whoever it is. Don't care. Ben Gannon Doak, Ryan Christie, Craig Gordon, whoever's up there. So I'm actually weirdly optimistic about the fact that we need to win. because I think Steve Clarke will he's almost like in check right now. He's got to react. He has to do something. Whereas had we been going in on this like 2 points ahead, defending a lead, you would have had Hanley, you would have had players sitting back, you would have had players scared to press in case we open up a gap for them to pass through. It just would have been tetchy football. You can't have tetchy football because otherwise we won't win.
Yeah, I think we saw the best and worst of Steve Clarke's Scotland team the other night, and when they did take that handbrake off, I think they were at their best. So, no, I agree, and it's nice to know, like, there won't be talk, there won't be questions to Steve Clarke before the game. You're happy to get a draw in this game.
Yeah, exactly.
The players won't be talking about that. We won't be talking about that in the pub. Are you wanting a draw or a win? You're going in knowing what you need, and I'm sure the Tartan Army can be right behind the team from the first second of this game. It's not always been the case at Hampden recently. Steve Clarke's put a rallying call out for it. I think it's what you'll see no matter what.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to the game. Fraser, we're going to be there. If anyone sees us in the streets, in the pub, in the stands, come across and say hi. Tell us you agree or disagree with our views. We don't mind. We're open to that. But looking forward to the game, Fraser. I know you're buzzing for it, aren't you?
Oh, I'm so buzzing.
What an opportunity.
Yeah.
You would have snapped someone's hand off for this chance at the start of the qualifying campaign.
Yeah, well, that's the point. I think if we go back to the start of this tournament or the qualification process and said you've got a shootout with Denmark at Hampden to go to the World Cup, at Scotland need to win 1-0 or better, would you take it? Yeah, absolutely would have taken it. I was slightly worried that we would be cut adrift in third because it's a very, very good Greece team and it's a very good Denmark team. We're not. We're in a position where we just need to beat Denmark. That's the calibre of opposition that you have to beat to get to a World Cup, and that's the calibre of opposition we're going to be playing against at the World Cup. So if we can't beat Denmark, we shouldn't go.
Well, we'll wait and see what happens. I'm buzzing for it, Fraser. We said at the start that we're going to do a bit of championship chat as well.
Yeah. Can I just put you on the spot just before we jump on? This is you don't need to. Can I ask for your prediction?
Oh, I'm not going to do a prediction,
No,
Fraser.
prediction.
I'm one of them.
No.
If I go into a Scotland game confident, we've lost every single one of them, so I'm not going to say anything. So what's your prediction? You can pick for me.
I can see it being an Israel type game. 3-2.
3-2.
3-2. Scott McTominay to bundle in the winner in the 94th.
Right, well,
Troy Parrott can do it in Budapest. Then Scott McTominay can do it in Glasgow.
well, I'm excited for it, Fraser. Buzzing for this game. So
Very.
bring it on. So that wasn't all the football on this weekend, though, Fraser, was it, though? Because there was 4 games on in the Scottish Championship as well. There was a lot of good games throughout the SPFL. Mentioned big win for Cove Rangers against Hamilton before we started recording, but we're just going to focus in on the Championship, and we'll start at the very top of the Championship.
The tip of the top?
The tippity top of the Championship, which saw St Johnstone get a 4-3 win over Queen's Park. If you thought the Scotland game was entertaining, you should see the highlights from this one. A couple of goals from Jamie Gull and Sam Stanton got St Johnstone into a flying lead. Queen's Park tried to drag them back a couple of times, but St Johnstone held on for what is a big 3 points. And Fraser, my question for you is going to be, with Partick Thistle not playing this weekend, how important a message maybe is that from St Johnstone just to bury in and extend their lead at the top of the table?
Yeah, it was huge, I think, because St Johnstone obviously kind of failed to capitalise on Partick Thistle last weekend, dropping points at Airdrie. I think, to get that statement win, it was one statement wins, maybe not the term, I guess. Queen's Park, a team that's not in brilliant form with a couple of injuries, down in the lower end of the table. It's one that I think St Johnstone have to be winning if they want to go in and win the league, and they look to be absolutely cruising to doing so at 3-0. But in similar fashion to the Greeks, they kind of capitulated a little bit.
They
maybe.
let Queen's Park into it a bit though, more than anything as well, didn't they?
They did. It was a little bit of sloppy defending, the penalty. I don't know, we were kind of a bit confused by that one, whether
Toby
or not
Stewart
it was.
Toby Stewart came out, sort of caught his man, wiped him out a little bit, but possibly got a hand to the ball first as well. A bit harsh, but
Exactly. So it does show that St Johnstone, they're a fantastic football team, and as I've said before, I do think they will go on to win the league. They've got strength in all the right areas, but they do have a slightly soft underbelly at times, and they can be got at. But then credit to Queen's Park, they've got one of the best players in the league that we've discussed at length, and Josh Fowler, a lovely assist and a goal for him as well. So they've got the players that can hurt other teams as well, and credit to them. They came back, they put on a little bit of a fight, got it back to 3-2. St Johnstone then opened it up and to make it a sort of comfortable run-in the end, 4-2, and then they got a goal at the end. So, but I think Queen's Park will be quite happy with that going away. They've shown the fight. It's almost kind of like how Scotland will be feeling. They'll be, tails will be up. It's a loss, but it's a spirited loss. But for St Johnstone, I think it's possibly a good victory. Actually, it's one where a manager will look at that and think, right, there's loads of positives to take from it. We got 3 points. We extended a lead at the top, but there's things to work on, and we can't be complacent. And I would imagine if they've gone on and won comfortably, then that's when maybe complacency can set in. I think to win, but just be pegged back a little bit. It will be concerning, I'm sure, for Simo Valakari, but they've got the players, I think, that they can address those issues.
Yeah, and down the other end of the table, then Queen's Park. I'll touch on that quickly as well. Said to you before, I think they've got such championship quality in both boxes, really. Josh Fowler, one end of the pitch, we won't speak about him again because we've waxed lyrical about him as being the best striker in the championship, quite possibly. But in the other box, they've got Ewan Murray and they've had Fox as well. Unfortunately, Charlie Fox did pick up that serious injury against Thistle, which I think that's going to really set them back. They had a young lad playing at centre-back against Rafe. His name slips my mind, unfortunately, but he got taken off at half-time. They moved left-back into centre-back, and you don't quite have that same solidity, albeit Ewan Murray won every single header up for grabs in that particular game. But if they can be solid in one box and score up the other end, Queen's Park will take points off teams this season. But obviously that injury could really affect them. But I reckon you'll see probably quite a few 4-3 sort of losses that Queen's Park might be, unfortunately, on the receiving end of that kind of scoreline, high-scoring games for the rest of the year. But they can certainly score goals, and things do look tight down at the other end of the table. So Fraser, do you want to take us on to our next game? You got a question for me?
What was the next game we were going to?
It can be any game you want to do.
Well,
go for it, yeah.
I think we have to. It's been a big week over in Kirkcaldy for your team. Obviously, a little bit of action behind the scenes. Would you like to take us through the Paul Hanlon's first game in charge?
Yeah, so Paul Hanlon's first game as interim player manager of Raith Rovers was a 3-0 loss at home to Airdrie. This wasn't certainly not a classic from a Raith Rovers perspective, I suppose you'd say. First of all, credit to Airdrie. They were really, really good. I had to show you Chris Mockery's goal because it's the kind of goal you'd love from a Raith perspective. He did run past about 4 or 5 players on his way to scoring. First goal for the game as well was a little bit concerning. You saw players sort of just stop playing after what was a handball. The play should have been stopped by the referee. Yep. Ewan Henderson's effectively on the floor, standing up. The ball doesn't just hit his hand, he controls it with his hand completely. But the whole Raith team, apart from maybe Paul Hanlon, stopped playing the game at that point, which you don't want to see. Concede from there. Just things seemed a bit quiet out on the pitch. Just concerning result. You don't put all the blame on Paul Hanlon, certainly. I think he spoke well after the game as well. He was getting a lot of questions about, certainly when he was asked, about him and being the future of the manager, he shut it all down. It wasn't about that. It was about the game, about the performance, which was unfortunately below the standards. And there's quite a lot of stuff that does need to be fine-tuned up in Kirkcaldy, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, I think so. We watched the highlights. You obviously saw the whole game. It did look like with Raith, it just sort of lacking it in the key areas. It's sort of lacking up front, lacking a wee bit of firepower, and then, as you say, just at times just sort of stopping, shouting for referee decisions when the game is still going on. So yeah, I'm sure it's something. It's good to see. I think from a Raith fan's point of view, Paul Hanlon, it's his first game.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been an interim anywhere else.
No, this is first time.
First time in a managerial position. That's okay. He's Airdrie are in relatively okay form at the moment as well. So
good.
They certainly did look good. So you'll learn from it, I'm sure. And yeah, you can work towards leading the team out next week, hopefully, in better circumstances. But it did look a wee bit iffy for Raith at times. But you've got the players, so
yeah, there's talent in that squad most definitely, and a couple of boys probably a bit lower on confidence, certainly, and might just need, I don't know what it is, a kick up the arse or just a result, a bounce for the ball, because Rafe could have scored in that first half as well, and it'd be a different game you may be talking about at that point. But obviously these moments go against you, but credit to Paul Hanlon, as I say, came in, he didn't make a single excuse. I think that's something that Rafe fans certainly got a bit frustrated with when it came to Barry Robson. it was always a bit difficult to say too much about him with my sort of connections to the club as well. The mics we're talking into now are the mics that Barry Robson has done a couple of post-match interviews into. So you can only say so much, but there was always a lot of excuses, under Barry Robson, and Paul Hanlon didn't give any excuse. He didn't come in and talk about refereeing decisions, and Airdrie's third goal, which was brilliantly taken by Ewan Henderson. He sort of took the ball in his own half, drove up the park and smashed it in off the underside of the crossbar. Build up to that, there was a couple moments in the box. Could have been a handball, could have been a foul on Dylan Easton. I'd say Paul Hanlon didn't really look for any excuses. He didn't say anything other than the fact that the team need to pick it up, and I'm confident they will. It's a good group of players, but losses in recent weeks to Airdrie and Queen's Park has sort of opened things up at the bottom. There's no one team getting cut adrift, and Airdrie have sort of really built their way back into that, because they did look like they could be getting cut off at one point. And the team they're close behind now to jump into our next game is Ross County, who find themselves 1 point off the bottom of the league. A 3-0 defeat at home to Greenock Morton probably just confounds what has been a very bad start to the season, it's fair to say, for County. And you keep thinking it's going to turn around, it's going to get better. They're still struggling big time. Fraser, not an impressive showing from County.
No, they created chances, but I don't think they can argue with the fact that they lost 3-0. They were porous in defence. I think that was the most glaring thing from that game, watching the highlights back. Obviously, we're taking it out of the context of the full 90 minutes, but in the context of the key points in the game, they were seen wanting in defence. A little bit calamitous at times. I'm not sure what goal it was, the second or third goal that
third
they
goal,
sort of
I think
assisted it off.
Sort of double deflection. Either Declan Gallagher or Dylan Smith got the block on, and then it deflected off the other one, and it was
it was just a little.
Really.
I guess that's unlucky, that can happen, but in a game where you lose 3-0 and there's a lot of sort of defensive frailties, it doesn't look great, and you kind of make your luck and make your unluck, I guess, in football. And it didn't look fantastic from that point of view. So especially a team like that at home kind of capitulated a little bit against Ayr United the week prior. They're just in a really sticky patch at the moment. I don't know what your thoughts on County are, my thoughts were that Tony Docherty would come in and started to sort of grind out some points along the way. I thought, they're going to really kick on. They've got the quality, the depth of player in the squad as well, that they would just kick on and start to sort of threaten the top four, but they just cannot get going at the moment.
Yeah, there seems to be a real sort of deep-rooted fragility sort of in the squad, that when they came down under Don Carey, that was spoke about, and it's not something they've been able to change up really, and Tony Docherty is a good manager as well, most certainly. It just seems really deep-rooted in the squad, just a bit of, I don't know exactly what it is. When I've seen them play, they've just looked like they're lacking a bit of cohesion at times. There's a lot of players pointing at each other after goals go in, and that sort of way of, why are you not tracking that right? Well, why are you not tracking it? A bit of question marks there. And they look like a big squad as well. They are a big squad. They're bloated, and before they even start thinking about bringing players in January, I think they need to cut back on numbers a little bit, because they don't look like a settled unit, and you don't know what their best 11 is, and you've got a bench full of players that could probably start for half the teams in the league, but they're on the bench for County, who are struggling. So a lot of work to turn that one around. Morton themselves look really, really clinical, look really professional and sharp, and I think Morton have probably been, had games where they've been the draw specialists this season. They've probably had other games where they look like they could convert that into being a bit more clinical and being a better team. And if this is the start of a run for Dougie Emery's team, then they might be looking up towards the playoffs, where we saw another big game this weekend then as well. I'll let you finish off on this one as well. Was Ayr United 1, Arbroath 1. Arbroath, who had been flying up in the playoffs this season, took the lead through Finlay Marshall with a well-struck finish. And then Ayr United striker Kevin Holt popping up in the box with a fantastic strike.
Yeah, so when you talk about the championship sort of draw specialists, there's a new kid on the block.
New kid on the block.
And it's Ayr United. Actually, remarkably similar stats with Ayr and Morton now, I think. Ayr have maybe drawn 8 of their matches and Morton have drawn 9. So Ayr they just can't quite kick on. They're tight in every match. They compete with every team in the league, but whether it's away at Queen's Park against 10 men, whether they're up in Dingwall against Ross County, or they're at home to Arbroath, just can't get over the line. I think Arbroath came flying out the blocks. I think it was a a tricky start for Ayr United. Finlay Marshall, as you say, pounced on a Stuart Bannigan sort of loose
He took his
pass.
goal very well. He's having a fantastic season on loan for Aberdeen.
Yeah, he is. He's a really, really good player. I don't know how many goals he's on now for the season, but it must be 5 or 6. Really nice, tidy finish. He pounced on that, looked really alert. But then sort of, just one of those matches between two probably similar quality teams at the moment. The table certainly reflects that. Ayr United were kind of pushing to get the equaliser, and they did so in the sort of dying embers of the game with just such a peculiar goal scorer. And when I saw, I was busy on Saturday, so I was out and about, and I was sort of keeping track of the match, seeing how Ayr were getting on. They were 1-0 down, and because we started with a sort of makeshift back three and back five and almost kind of midfield as well, I thought, the reports were that Arbroath were on top. I thought this was going to be a long afternoon, so I was half expecting it just to peter out 1-0 or Arbroath to make it 2-0. Checked my phone at full time to see that Kevin Holt had scored for Ayr United in the 87th minute, assisted by Anton Dowd. So I could only have assumed that was a flick on from a corner.
However, there was a polar bear in Arlington, Texas at this moment in time.
There really was. I watched the highlights. Just if I don't expect everyone's going to want to watch highlights of Ayr United Arbroath. You should, but you might not want to watch the full 7 minutes. Skip to the end and watch where Kevin Holt starts his run. This is in fully open play, counter attack. Ayr United broke, long ball over the top to Anton Dowds. Question marks over or not whether he fooled Tam O'Brien. Did I say fooled or filled?
Fooled, I think.
Yeah, I meant to say filled. Question marks whether or not he fouled O'Brien. O'Brien went down. Anton Dowds picks his head up, and who was there but the big polar bear in the penalty spot to slot home? Not just a scuffed finish either. It was
His foot through it.
Exactly. But that's not where, Kevin Holt's not shy of a goal either. He takes penalties. He does like a goal, but I really would love to know what was going through not only his head, but the rest of his teammates' head, because it was him that...
He started in his own box and that never stopped. So.
And he ran past. I think it was Mark McKenzie. Mark McKenzie was more advanced, and he was looking to get the ball back from Anton Dowds, maybe more sort of nearer the touchline. Kevin Holt was like, nah, I'm getting... He made a beeline for the box, and Anton Dowds, I think, looked up, probably couldn't believe his eyes, and thought, this is perfect. I've got someone helping me out here. Squared it off, and Kevin Holt did the rest. Truly peculiar. I'd love to speak to Scott Brown. I'd love to speak to Kevin Holt himself just to find out whether that was planned, whether Kevin Holt just sniffed out a goal, whatever it was. Fantastic though. It was great to see this. When you see a player that's sort of brings something to a game that he's just really not meant to, it's good to see in football. So my uncle was at the game, and he was sat watching the highlights going, I need to watch this again to work out why he was there. And I was like, totally confusing, but fantastic. So got Ayr United a good draw. I think Arbroath will probably be disappointed. Certainly Ayr United, Kyle Ure I think he's away with Scotland under 21s. Ben Dempsey must not be fully fit, so he didn't start. You had Scott McMahon, who normally plays either left full back or left centre back. He was playing at right centre back. You got Liam Dick coming in at left centre back, Marco Roos and Mark McKenzie at wing back. It's a bit sort of
makeshift.
A little bit makeshift. You've got sort of square pegs and round holes. All good players in their own right, but just players sort of filling in positions that Scott Brown probably wouldn't ordinarily want them to. So I think Arbroath will maybe look at that game and think possibly a missed opportunity just with the team that Ayr United put out. Ayr United will probably look at it as a missed opportunity to lay a glove on a team that are above them in the league, and they would want to be beaten at home. But probably both teams on the balance of play would be quite happy with a 1-1 draw.
Well, that's been another exciting week of action in the Scottish Championship, as it always is. Great division, and it's really opened up. So, looking forward to that. Hopefully then, Grant Hanley, if he's got any spare time, he can watch the Ayr United highlights, because the greatest moment you can imagine in Scottish football history would be Grant Hanley in the 90th minute, popping up in the box like a dart and run from midfield, from the back, puts it in top corner. I think at that point, Grant Hanley should get, you know how the Irish said they were going to rename their airport after Troy Parrott.
They have.
They have.
Well, the Twitter page has. Yeah.
We give Grant Hanley all the airports. Rename the Kelpies after him. Whatever he wants, he can have it.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see that. That's
I
my
would.
one
I would
final message.
love to see a Grant Hanley in full flow, and just running past Ryan Christie, running past McTominay, elbowing them out the way.
McTominay's who's this guy coming up? Yeah, like
Ben Gannon slots it onto the penalty spot, and Big Hanley wraps his size 13s through it.
Top corner, past Kasper Schmeichel into the top corner. That'd be a beautiful.
And if not, Kevin Holt, he's match fit. Steve Clark,
You never know.
he doesn't have far to travel. Just pick up that phone and get the big man in. He's
him up.
perfect
Get him
for
up
Steve
top,
Clark sort of tactics. Throw Kevin Holt on it, centre forward for the last 5 minutes. But fantastic, exciting football from the weekend. Hopefully, more successful football.
I most certainly agree with you there.
Tonight.
And we'll be back next week. Obviously, a bit of a shorter episode today. No challenges to come. We're just doing the big Scotland previews of a bonus episode. So buzzing for that. We'll be back with some pretty sure, hopefully, with some guests coming up as well. Fraser, plenty to look forward to here.
Yeah,
Joga Bonito.
Plenty. Yeah.
So,
good times to be a Scotland fan and a Joga Bonito fan. Am I right?
Hopefully, let's hope so. Fraser, buzzing for this game. Thanks for hosting me once again.
Yeah, no, pleasure. Yeah, and I'll see you. Well, I'll see you in 20 minutes when we're going to the game, obviously.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. Looking forward to it. So, enjoy the rest of your week.
Nice. Yeah.
Thanks everyone for watching.
Joga Bonito is
It's finito.